Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Spent a lot of years of my life working really hard to become somebody, and had this idea, right, of what success looked like. And yet I'm finding the most beauty in this season when I get to see the work that I am able to do with my kids and my family. And it is really truly a work of God in my life.
Hey friend, you are listening to the AllMomDoes podcast. I'm your host, Julie Lyles Carr. We're part of the Purposely Podcast Network. We are in season 9. I cannot believe it. And you would think that over the years, with all the topics we've covered, all the things that you've told us, hey, I need to know more about this. I want to know more about that. Can you have so-and-so on the podcast? But here's the thing. Motherhood, it just goes on, and the topics and concerns and fresh voices out there to help guide us in the way, they just keep coming. And I'm so thankful for that. And that is why I cannot wait for you to meet my new gorgeous friend, Alexandra Hoover, who's going to be talking to us today about how to model emotional health for our kids. Alexandra, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh my gosh. Hi, friend. And hey, friends who are listening on the other side. It's so good to be with you today. I'm so excited for this conversation.
I am too. Well, tell the listener where you live, kids, dogs, favorite coffee order, all the stuff we need to know.
I've got 3 beautiful kids. Our oldest is 13. Our youngest is 9. She'll be 10 here in January. And our son is 12. Been married for 17 years. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. But my husband really wants everyone to know all of the time that we are Charlotte people. We are from Charlotte, North Carolina. So anytime people ask, like, where are you from? I've said Charleston recently, and he's given me the eyes. He looked at me like, what are you doing? And I'm like, right, no, you're sorry. So we live here, and I think we are, staying in Charleston, but we are from Charlotte, North Carolina. Favorite coffee order, I think, is the really most important thing I should probably talk to you about. And I will tell you that I'm a little bit of a coffee snob, not because I judge other people who drink whatever. You drink whatever coffee you want. I like to start with my Nespresso at home, and then I will make my way to the Dime coffee shop here in Charleston, and I will get an oat milk latte with 1 pump of brown sugar. Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay. Good to know. I am, I see coffee as an important multivitamin, whatever form it comes in. My husband, he orders much more like you. He even has some preferred temperatures going on now. So, there's a lot to be
very
said.
good. Tell me, is he more of like I need it scorching hot kind of
He
thing?
does like scorching hot, and he is about the oat milk latte situation. So yeah, you guys would be good coffee buddies for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
Well, Alexandra, when your publicist reached out, I was so excited to see what you've been writing about, the things that you're considering, all the places where you're showing up and saying, hey, here's a conversation we need to have, because you've got a great book that has come out called You Can Let Go. And you really delve into in a way that I think is so powerful. We live in a culture today in which, I got to be honest, Alexandra, I'm constantly worried I'm going to offend somebody, upset someone. And there is this place where we almost struggle in some ways to be as honest or transparent as we should be, because we are also triggered as a culture. And then I've also found myself too, Alexandra, in a way, I've never been one of those people who's been easy to offend, but then I've also kind of felt like, well, maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm not taking good care of myself if I let stuff roll off my back or whatever. In the midst of all this, we are raising people who are watching how we handle these things that come our way, whether we are intending to model what this looks like or not. We are. So I want to hear from you. Why this topic? Why did this start to really come up in your heart is something that we needed to start talking about. The ways that we deal with offense, disappointment, pain, the way we model for our kids. Give me the genesis of this for you.
You're right. We are in a culture that I would say that we are not just probably easily offended. I think that for those of us that follow Jesus, that know the way of Jesus, I think that we have skipped over, have chosen to kind of lay down this really important invitation, part of the gospel, the good news, that is, what does it look like to really walk in forgiveness and love our neighbor? And I say that with a, thick brushstroke, kind of answer, but offense is what my book is about. You can let go. And when I started to kind of unpack this idea of offense, the Lord began to show me that in order for me to raise spiritually and emotionally healthy kids, which not perfect, right? We're all moms. And so we know that this is a journey. We're all sowing seeds. But in order for me to model a life that is not only modeling Jesus, but kids who are resilient in emotion and kids who are resilient and walking through one of my favorite words, nuance, because that's something that I think we have missed and are having a hard time kind of walking with in this generation. In order to do that well and raise kids that really love their neighbor, I was going to have to learn to heal from my own offense. And I was going to have to really learn to model a life where I do love my neighbor, where I walk in a posture of surrender, where I really learn what it looks like to forgive and also show my kids what it looks like to ask for their forgiveness too. And so, the Lord really began to kind of pull on this thread of offense, and I just saw how important it was in all of the facets of my life.
I'm observing, and I love on the one hand that people are being very clear about this happened to me, my parent did this, my former spouse
Sure.
did that we're telling our stories. I think that's really beautiful. I don't believe in victim shaming. I want to be very clear about that. But there's something about, I think maybe even in our social media age, that we become known for something. Oh, that's the girl whose husband left her for the assistant, or that's the girl whose mom did such and such, and she did that podcast about what it was like growing up with a narcissistic mother. And we almost get stuck in these avatars about our pain, about the thing that happened to us. Sometimes because we're the ones who are continuing to put logs in the fire, but sometimes because we become fixed in people's minds as the girl who, whatever. And there is this thing that I explored in one of my books about family mythology, which is how we each fulfill a role in our family of origin, in the families that we create with our spouses. How easy it is to say, well, that's the quiet one. That's the one who is outgoing. That's the one who's the boss. And I still do it with my kids today, my adult kids. Like, he's the one who's you can depend on. And some of that's being known. Some of that's beautiful. But some of that can keep us trapped a little bit. So how do you see a healthy way in which we can own our stories, own the things that have happened to us? You came from a background in which you had a single mom, you had a dad who wasn't in the picture anymore, through a lot of painful experiences. How do you use that story that God gave you and yet not get stuck in the pain of it as your identifier? To me, that seems a really important component of moving past offense. How do we do that?
Julie, that's a brilliant question. And I think probably a question that everyone at some point has asked. I love that you preface it with saying, like, we're not going to victim shame. And also there is such an important piece of this, all right, which is if we are willing to truly take up this idea of walking in forgiveness and we really want healing, then it's going to take us understanding that our past does not actually define us. It only gets to shape us. And I think when we allow our past and our pain to when we realize that it gets to shape us, we kind of take back the power of it being the one thing that identifies us. And so to give some examples, right? So when we allow our trauma to become our identity, we begin to live in such way. And so we begin to live like the thing that has happened to us becomes the roadmap for our lives. That's an identity. We take that on, that trauma, whatever it may be, whatever words spoken to you or over you, and whatever thing you perceived happen or walked in reality, right? Whatever it is, it becomes your trauma. You're like, yep, that's it. Now, allowing it to shape us is so different when we allow our pain to shape us, because ultimately it's going to anyways. But when we say, oh, that thing shaped me, and allow God to redeem that, what happens is we become curious enough to learn what our pain is trying to teach us. And I think that there's something so beautiful, truly, and this is up to us. Like, God's given us this invitation. It is up to us to, with God, look at the thing that has happened and say, okay, what does it mean for me to learn to take from that and to live a life of freedom, allowing it to claim kind of this new future that I'm walking into without it becoming a whole identity. Like, I am not the thing that has happened to me. And yet I have so much to offer the world because I know how to
Right.
walk
You've
through
been
it.
there. You can be a trail angel. You can show somebody how to make it through.
Absolutely.
What do you
Yeah.
find in your work with women and your Bible teaching, in the people you're talking to? What do you find when it comes to women who are trying to mother, but they themselves have not been through the work of healing and taking care of wounds and the blind spots?
Mm,
I know that it's,
mm.
I would say there are several moments, right, in our lives that reveal the things where we probably are allowing pain to define us rather than shape us. I love that distinction. Thank you for that. I am putting that in my back pocket and going to pull it out frequently. But I do think that finding our
Thank
romantic
you.
partner, getting married, we can have all kinds of stuff bubble to the top
Yeah.
because now that is a level of
Yeah.
vulnerability that we are engaging in. And there's nothing like the friction of another personality to bring out some stuff in your own. But then motherhood is that place as well,
Mm,
because we do feel so
mm.
vulnerable and we do explore things about ourselves we didn't know before. It's been said that when a child is born, a mother is also born. So that's a version of ourselves we haven't known to that point. And yet, a lot of us, I think, whether we were aware of the woundedness or not, whether we were aware of the ways in which it impacted us, we are often trying to parent from that place. We're either going 180 degrees in the opposite direction so that we don't do the things we think that were done to us, or we're responding in exactly the same way rather than a pause and saying, this kid, this time, this place, God's entrusted me to. What do I do here? Not reactionary. How can we do a double check to say, am I responding to my kids out of a healed place, a redeemed place,
Yeah.
or am I still
Yeah.
modeling reactionary to what happened to me?
Julie, I talk a lot about this, and let me be so clear. I am speaking from the place of a woman who is actively, right, in the trenches of working this very thing out. I'm a woman who's walked through layered trauma. I have a pretty, contentious relationship with my mom now and my dad, and I'm a grown woman, and yet I'm raising 3 kids with my husband, and so. Friends, when you hear me talk, know that you're learning from a woman who was walking this with
Mm-hmm.
you. And so I haven't perfected, but I would say that I am actively learning with God what it looks like to live surrendered to this. And I think that's important. And I want to unpack that and say it again. I think the way that we approach motherhood, when it comes to our pain and our life and how we're parenting our children, we have to posture ourselves with so much humility and really go in and say, like, I need to be so surrendered to this thing every day because I know that my original lens, the framework from which I'm used to living from, is broken.
Right.
And so when I recognize that I need a new lens, there's this like posture of humility that happens where, I'll give you a really, a really good example. My oldest is 13. She'll turn 14 in 2 months. Layla has been one of the I would say probably the greatest example in this in our family because she grew up with me and I grew up with her, and I don't say that lightly. I was
Mm-hmm.
21 when I got pregnant with Layla. I had her when I was 22. She got the most unhealed version of me, and I don't say
Right.
that lightly. She got the most unhealed version of me. She got the most offended and wounded version of me. And so I've had to approach my relationship with Layla in a way that is incredibly honest, with a lot of humility, with a lot of self-awareness, to not only say to her, but to myself and God, like, there have been some things that I have missed the mark in because I was parenting from places of unhealed wounds. And so I think having an awareness, having a posture of humility, and the Lord loves and welcomes this posture of weakness, right? Where we say, like, I don't know how to do this without you. I think when we approach parenting in that way, and all the facets, but especially when it comes to woundedness and pain, I think we begin to see something happen. And I think our children, when, from what I have seen, right, really value authentic humility and authentic understanding when we say, like, hey, mom is in process and this is what I have missed and this is what I'm repairing, so that you see it be repaired in real time. I think that there's so much value in that. I did
Mm-hmm.
not see that. And I know that because I didn't see that, I missed this part of understanding what it means to not only heal, but grow together in family.
You think that you are in the final round of getting all this parenting done. You've got kids who are in high school, you're starting to think about college, and you're thinking, this is it. I'm Julie Lyles Carr. I'm a podcaster and I'm a mom of 8. And here's what I want you to know about George Fox University. It's a different way of doing college. Why? Because yes, it's all about getting a fantastic degree to set your kid up for their future. They have 60 undergrad programs available at George Fox University. But that's not where the story ends. It's also about equipping them spiritually. If you get out of college with a degree, but you don't have a closer relationship with God, that obviously is going to deeply impact what your young adult life looks like. So for your kiddos, I want you to consider, what would it mean for your child to be able to go to George Fox University, where 93% of George Fox students say they now have a closer relationship with Jesus? George Fox University is located in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon. They have 23 Division III athletic programs, and 100% of students at George Fox University receive financial aid. George Fox University is dedicated to their promise. They want every student to be known for who God created them to be. So listen, parents, yeah, you are getting into some of those final laps, but you definitely want to make these last laps count in a big way when it comes to the legacy of your parenting. So be sure and check out for your student, georgefox.edu. That's georgefox.edu. I love that you talk about a lens, because I think about one of my son-in-law is an optometrist, and the fascination with, okay, is it this prescription level or is it this prescription level, and how he can, it's just that piece of being able to say, okay, we're going to try to get some clarity, and you keep moving that lens until you come up with the right lens. It also makes me think about, I was on a road trip recently with one of my brothers and our spouses, and I drive a Jeep, which I love my little Jeep because I drove a 15-passenger van for a long time, and you deserve a Jeep after you've driven a 15-passenger van. But it's funny because one of the things that happens with Jeeps, their windshields sit up a little bit straighter than in a standard car. And so you're more at risk for your windshield getting hit by debris on the road and cracking. And of course, mine's cracked in a gajillion places. The lens through which I drive that Jeep is cracked. As we were driving and the sun was beginning to set, the sun was coming in a way that was hitting those cracks, and it really was almost blinding. Like you could really see these cracks, right? And my brother, who is a genius, when we pulled over to get some more gas, he said, I have an idea. Do you have a Sharpie? No, I always have a Sharpie. I don't know why. I always have a Sharpie. I pulled a Sharpie out, and he colored on every place that the windshield was cracked, this black Sharpie, which helped deflect that direct sunlight. But here's the thing, Alexandra, the windshield is still cracked. It still needs to be replaced with something fresh. I was able to minimize. Yeah. We took some action that made those cracks seem not as obvious, but it didn't resolve the problem. And my concern today is I see people with complicated histories, with parents, siblings, whatever. They are just putting Sharpie on the windshield. They're going no contact, or they're calling a family member, oh, that person's clearly a narcissist, or they're clearly toxic. And maybe sometimes that's the way it needs to be. But in the doing, sometimes we're not actually replacing the windshield. We're just covering over the things that have created the damage.
Yeah.
How do you navigate with your children based on the fact that you're still in process with parents, still getting that healed? I know that's the case for so many listeners today, is trying to figure out, okay, I'm the one suspended in the middle of these two generations. How do I do it differently and better, but at the same time own my story? But how are we going to do this? So for you, what have you noticed in your parenting through that's very complicated to try to hold in both hands? Here's how we have resilience. Here's how we work through offense and real pain. And yet you're trying to hold in tandem these relationships.
I said this a little bit earlier. I think, to be clear, you said this, there are times where going no contact is so important. There are times where we have to draw some incredible boundaries to protect the things that God has given us, including our identity and self-worth. And those things are beautiful. And yet, I do think we are in a culture that has become incredibly comfortable with writing things off just because they are uncomfortable to us or for us. And I think that in order for us to truly learn to repair things that are ruptured, we have to understand that there is going to be some
Right.
discomfort. And so the question that I'd like to ask us, and that I even talk to my kids about, even through, familial things or friendship, is like, do we really want repair, or do we really just want to remove discomfort? Because with repair comes
Right.
discomfort. And I think that when you're looking at something that needs repair, you're going to have to give it intention. And I think that none of us want to hear that. And I want to hold your hand when I say this, because it's with so much gentleness. Again, I'm with you. There have been times in my, in many conversations with my parents or some family where I'm like, I just don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like nuancing it. I don't feel like walking this thing out. I don't want to walk through forgiveness anymore. I'm exhausted. And the Lord has said, then do you really want repair, or do you want to walk in forgiveness? And I've had to really come face to face with that, because I think the answer sometimes is like, no, I like the idea of repair, but I would much rather have comfortability. And so when I'm walking this thing out with my kids, Julie, I kind of do the same thing. I'm like, listen, healing takes work. And honestly, like it takes a lot of intention. And more than anything, Julie, what I'm hoping and praying is that they see me actively walk out several relationships in my life where it would be easier to have just removed them. And instead, my husband and I have chosen to walk this thing out, man, with a lot of grace and a lot of compassion, because we recognize the grace and compassion given to us. I'm not saying it's cute, and I'm not saying it's comfortable, but I am saying that in order to truly walk with freedom, there has to be some understanding and sacrifice around what true healing looks like.
I think this is so important. I can see in my own parenting, I wanted to try to avoid mistakes. I wanted to try to, as best I could, buffer my kids from some of the experiences I had in school, or some of the things that were said to me, or the way that I felt, or whatever.
Oh, of course.
And I don't have any desire for my kids to go through really hard stuff. The thing that's tricky is I recognize that the tough stuff makes us resilient. And if there is a characteristic in this life that I think is very important, whether you seem to walk in a life that has a whole lot of favor from the Lord, or if you seem to walk in this life in a way that has you wondering, Lord, where are you? It still requires resilience. And we seem to be a culture today that doesn't have a lot of toleration for the things that build resilience. And
that's right.
How do you navigate that as a mom, allowing certain things to come through because you know that it can create better outcomes, better strength, better resilience? It may be years down the line, versus filtering out the things that you think, okay, this is something I'm called as a mom to protect my child from. I think that's gotten really murky today in terms of how we do that. My parents were pretty dedicated to letting consequences play out the way they were going to play out. I think that one can kind of be an easier one to go, well, if my kid did X, Y, Z, then they probably need to experience the consequence of that. But even in that, we see parents trying to intercept. I know people in the educational field who have parents show up all the time that the kid didn't do the homework, or the kid cheated, or whatever, and they're trying to buffer that kid from experiencing that consequence. So in all of that soup, how are you working through that? What gets through the sieve for your child's good? What gets caught back behind the net the best you can, so that they're not damaged or injured in the process?
That's a great question. I have two quick examples I kind of want to give. I think, there are several different ways this can play out. I want to talk through the familial lens first, and looking at like family and healing and trauma and tension and things. For years, I was like, I am going to keep my kids distant and separated, and as far as I can from the people that have wounded me, that have caused pain in my life. And there have been times where I've allowed people to come into proximity that I'm like, oh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. Where the Lord has said, no, what you're showing them is what it looks like to walk through things and give people the grace that I've given you. And let me deal with the consequence, or the things that they will have to learn and walk through with me too. And I've had to learn that allowing my kids to see pain, and allowing my kids to see not even dysfunction, and I want to clear that up, allowing them to see family, allowing them to see what looks like ruptures and some pain, has been healthy, because they've been able to recognize, oh, mom has tried to repair something that now we've created a boundary with, and it's been obvious for them. And so whether I like it or not, that is a part of the fallen world we live in. And I would rather my kids understand what it looks like to try and repair, and then also establish healthy boundaries, even if it causes others discomfort. And so modeling that, I think, is really important. How can we model healthy boundaries if we are not willing to place them? And I want them to learn to do that. I want them to learn to have a voice of their own and model boundaries. And it starts in our home, with a lot of love and compassion. And that's what I think people sometimes get really wrong. And me too. I've had to apologize a million times to people in my family whenever I'm too harsh in the way that I place my boundaries. Now, on the other hand, you talk to friendships and people in life and school. There's a situation not too long ago where I think I overextended my authority in one of my kids' lives by trying to protect them from something that I really just needed to just let play out. And I think when I think about our relationship with Jesus, and I think about the way in which God fathers us and parents us, he will allow us to walk through circumstances so that we can build character. And he has corrected me and with gentle rebukes so many times, and has said, like, do you not trust me to parent them? Do you not trust me do you not trust me enough to walk with them through this? And, I have found myself incredibly burnt out. I'm sure moms can understand this, when I'm trying to be God in every single one of my kids' lives. I just can't be. I'm like, oh, right, I am not the Holy Spirit. True. God, you are in their lives, that you are indwelling with them and around them and surrounding them. And so I've had to learn to, every day is a surrender to say, there are certain things, God, where you will just have to speak. And, a prayerful mom is a mom who can move mountains. And I do think that when I find myself anxious, Julie, I give it to God. Truly.
I have been reflecting myself that when I look at Jesus's story about the prodigal son, the parent stays within the life he's built, stays within the confines, if you will, the godly confines. Okay, I'm here. You go do your thing. When you're ready, I'm here. And I will run to meet you at that gate, but I'm here. There's something in that. I think often as parents, we feel like we're having to chase our kids to try to bring them to a certain place. And certainly Jesus does go after the one and leaves the 99. And we could theologically massage this however you want, but there's something powerful to me about saying, I'm here. This is how I live my life. These are the standards. I love you and I'm here. But sometimes our kids are going to have to go eat with the pigs to figure it out. And we have to have the trust that you were talking about in order to allow that to happen. Now, I want to hear you explain to me, I'm fascinated to hear this. The book is called You Can Let Go. But we've been talking about also having to put into place some healthy boundaries, some things that we're going to say, okay, this can come through the net, this can't. So work that out for me. How do we let go and at the same time hold those places and positions that we need to when it comes to modeling what emotional health is supposed to look like and the factors that go into that?
I think that we have confused or misunderstood what actual forgiveness or letting go looks like. When Jesus talks about offense, really anywhere in scripture, when we see this idea of offense kind of brought up, it's a trap. And what's interesting about this idea of offense, scandalon, it's a snare that we get tied up in, is that when it comes to us, there's two things that happen in the book of Matthew. There's a warning for those who are causing the offense, and then there's a warning for those who are unwilling to move out of it. And I think for many of us, the letting go part comes in an understanding that we are the ones, and I'll say this so gently, we are the ones holding ourselves hostage. And so when I said to myself, like, man, there is a generation of women who are holding themselves hostage to things that they have, quite frankly, no will or authority to heal or restore within themselves. And so it was this really beautiful moment where I had said to myself, like, yeah, it's me. Like, I'm the problem. It's me. I am holding myself hostage to these things that I cannot heal on my own. And so the book, the invitation of You Can Let Go, is really to say, like, okay, we've tried to heal and let go of offense this way, this bait, the snare that we took, the snare we've been living in, this trap. That's not working. So then what's on the other side? How do we then move through life not carrying offense, not being women who are consistently offended or living trapped? And then I offer us a way forward. And it is by living on the offense, right? Not the defensive, but on the offense of it all, and saying, like, how do I want to live my life? How do I posture my life in a way that is a life that is actively living from a place of forgiveness? How do I live my life so secure in my identity in Christ that I know who I am? That if words do come my way, I'll know I'm shielded, right? With the shield of faith. I know what God says about me. And so I invite us into establishing this world, right, where we are rooted in Christ. We are safe in his arms and really are able to discern the boundaries and the things that God's asked us to put in place so that we're not consistently living in offense.
Beautifully put, because I think we have hinged a lot of our emotional well-being on the behavior of others. If others will only not say, do XYZ, whatever,
Sure.
we call that boundaries. You will
100%.
not do this to me. You will not do that. And guess what? People are just going to run right past that. So I really do love that you say the one thing we do have an ability to decide is how we're going to place ourselves, what we're going to believe about ourselves, what we're going to believe about our position within God's plan. That's really profound. I love that you say that. Well, Alexandra, tell the listener where they can get the book, where they can get all the good stuff from you, engage with you, find out more about your content. You are just a gift. And I want to make sure people know how to find you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so You Can Let Go is the title of the book. Make peace with your past, break free from offense, and move forward with God. You can grab it on Amazon, Baker Books. A bunch of Barnes & Nobles have the book in stock. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the places. My user handle is Alexandra V. Hoover, pretty much everywhere, if not Alex Hoover, because somebody took Alexandra V. Hoover. If that's you, please let it go. In the name of Jesus. Thank you. I say it every and it's my work. I'm a Bible teacher, author. I get to be a ministry leader. But my greatest joy, and I'm not overstating, I really do love that I get to be mom and that I get to be a wife. And I've worked really hard, Julie, to get to this season of my life where I'm content also in this ministry of motherhood and see the work that I get to do in this. And this wasn't me. I hadn't planned on sharing this, but I will say this, and I'm sure it's for somebody. I spent a lot of years of my life working really hard to become somebody, and had this idea, right, of what success looked like. And I'm an incredibly independent woman. I'm sure you can hear it. I have a lot of vision and direction for my life, and yet I'm finding the most beauty in this season when I get to see the work that I am able to do with my kids and my family. And it is really truly a work of God in my life that I have seen him do. And so I want to encourage the women who are listening to this, who maybe are in the middle of a season where they feel like, man, their gifts aren't being used or their skill set is not something that they're putting to work. It comes in seasons. And I do want to tell you that the work you are doing now and every day and will do is going to leave a legacy of obedience for your family. And it's beautiful.
That is profound. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I know for me, there is somebody else also out there who's going to be like, oh, she just read my mail. So thank you for that so much, Alexandra. All right. Well, appreciate your time so much. And thank you again for being willing to take the time and come on the podcast today. You're just a treasure. All right, friend, you know what to do. Those show notes that Rebecca puts together, that's where you're going to find everything that Alexandra was talking about, where to find the book, where to find her. I love it too when you hang out at AllMomDoes.com and AllMomDoes on the socials, because you're going to find a great community there of women in the same seasons of life that you're walking through, asking a lot of the same questions. You're going to find encouragement and inspiration. I love it too when you come to see me over, I'm usually around Instagram the most, Julie Lyles Carr over there, but Julie Lyles Carr, all the places. And, we love to develop episodes based on your questions, guests that you want to see, topics that you're concerned about. Would you just do me a favor? Run over to the DMs, slip in there and say, hey, Jules, I want to know about thus and such. Or I think you should have so and so on. That really helps us shape the podcast into something that can be the most nutritious and right in the moment for you, for the life that you're living. And I will see you next time on the AllMomDoes podcast.